Welcome back, everybody, to Mac Stories Unwind. We've got a very special WWDC episode today. I'm John Voorhees, and my two special guests are Jonathan Reed. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, guys.
And Sigmund Judge. Hey, Sigmund.
Hello.
It's great to have you guys. We gave Federico the day off. He's been working very hard, doing basically a lot of the work that I would have done if I had stayed home this week, which has been great because we've had not only a lot of help from Federico, but the entire team doing incredible coverage with all the stories this week. I've managed to write a couple of things, not really much at all, but I've been particularly busy with recording and editing those recordings. And we did have a chance yesterday to record at the Apple Podcast Studio, where Federico was a floating head on a screen in front of me while I spoke to people live in person and had 3 cameras with lights shining in my face, which is not my usual podcasting setup. But today's not typical either because I am sitting in my son's apartment now. I've moved on from the hotel and I'm sitting at a kitchen table recording. And yeah, we're gonna just kind of dive in, and we've got like three topics to talk about today. And the very first one, I'm going to explain why I wasn't on, I think it was episode 387. And this was very disappointing for me because I have a record. I have been on all 386 episodes in a row. And that was the first episode I've ever missed because I was kidnapped by Apple. I went to Apple Park on Monday, right? And I went to the keynote, and there was a good, they never say when the keynote's going to be over. You don't really know how long it's going to be. It started at 10 a.m. Pacific, and it was over by about 11:30, I want to say, maybe 11:45. And my next briefing wasn't until 2 o'clock. So I thought, I've got like 2 solid hours, maybe a little bit more to get back to my hotel, record, and then come back to campus. Well, when I mentioned that to one of the PR handlers, and you have to kind of, I guess for context, realize that when you enter Apple Park as press, you are never out of like arm reach of a PR person. Like they pick you up at the gate, they take you on a cart, they walk around with you, they hand you off to another person, they put you in a room, they have you sit there, and they kind of, they basically guard the door, make sure you don't wander off too far.
Sneak off and steal the secrets.
Right. I mean, they'll let you get up and use the bathroom or get a snack or whatever it is, but you're just kind of like in a holding area. And so as a result, like for all these briefings, even though a lot of them, I think the longest briefing I had was like 40 minutes, it still was a lot longer time, sunk into each one of those briefings than the 40 minutes would suggest because they meet you at the gate about 20 minutes in advance. A lot of these briefings were really far from the entrance. Like I had a bunch over at the fitness center, which from the main like visitor center entrance is clear across the other side of Apple Park. And it takes a little while to get there. And then they drop you off there and they just have you sit. And you sit there for quite a while. And then maybe the briefing before it is a little behind schedule. So you sit some more. And then you go in. And then you have to go be carted back on a golf cart back to the entrance and then get in your car and then drive around the park and then get to the hotel. It ended up being like one of these things where for me to get from the fitness center, which was physically, if I could draw a straight line to my hotel, like a 5-minute walk, it would take me like 25 minutes to get back to my hotel. And it's literally across the street from Apple Park. So it was just logistically impossible. And they told me after the keynote, they basically had made no accommodation for anyone leaving. They set up lunch and we ate. And I thought, well, I'll skip lunch or I'll eat really quick and I'll still have time to go back to the hotel. But they said, no, you really can't do that. And so what they did is, we did have a pretty quick lunch, and then they walked us over to the Steve Jobs Theater where they did this sit down with John Giandrea and Craig Federighi that was moderated by iJustine. And we went over there. Boy, I think we went over there like 1:15 or something for the 2 o'clock thing. So there was an awful lot of this kind of hurry up and wait all week long where I would be carted off to somewhere only just to sit for a long period of time, but not long enough to actually get anything done. And so that's part of the inefficiency of the week, I suppose. But that's why I know Federico was like, I know Mike was on Tuesday, and he was a little incredulous that I couldn't get out of the
Yeah.
Apple Park with that long of a delay. And it's like, well, that's why. It's because it was both a long commute basically to the hotel that was literally only a 5-minute walk away. Because even the second day, when I did get on Tuesday, the one that Mike Hurley was on, that episode, I I asked to be, I was at the fitness center again, and I asked to be let out the exit that was right by my hotel, and they wouldn't let me do it because they have their protocols, and they would only let me out at the entrance that was furthest away from my hotel. And then I had to, go get my car, which was like parked 3 levels deep in the parking structure, drive out of this parking structure, and then race around the campus and avoid road work. It was just a whole thing. I mean, by the time I sat down at the hotel desk to actually do that little bit that I was on, I was kind of out of breath and a little bit frustrated. But we did that, and then I made it back in time for the next thing, which was kind of like a meet and greet with developers. But I'll probably talk about more about kind of some of the unique things from the week on AppStories that'll be out Sunday and Monday this week.
Would you say that, I think that the impression that from the outside, and I think speaking to you a little bit now, maybe see a bit more inside of it, but I think probably everyone's impression is that it's quite glamorous to sort of go to Apple Park and you see the keynote, and then you're hanging out with Jason Snell and MKBHD, and you're sort of enjoying that life at Apple Park. Would you say it's not maybe as glamorous as people imagine? Is it sort of quite a busy, sort of hardworking, rushed around sort of experience? Do you get time to sort of really just relax and enjoy that time of being in such a kind of incredible environment?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's relaxing in the least. It's kind of exhausting.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's very nice to be able to see a lot of people and there was time before the keynote in like a little press reception area to sit around and have some breakfast and talk to people, which is always nice. And a bunch of us sat together in the press area for the keynote. I was there with like Dan Morin and Chris Lawley and Jason Snell and David Smith and a bunch of other, and I guess Casey Liss was there too, a bunch of different people. And that's always nice because I don't get to see those folks very often. And you do occasionally meet someone who you haven't met before. I had not met Marquez Brownlee before, and I met him while I was running around. He and I were shared a golf cart to a press briefing, which was a little weird. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's both exhausting because you have to be very on and focused to ask questions that hopefully you can get good answers to, because you have a very limited amount of opportunity to do that. And you want to kind of absorb as much information as possible, as quickly as possible. But then there's these periods of kind of just boredom where you're just kind of sitting around having a snack because you're waiting for someone to come get you and do the next thing. But I mean, I think in total after the keynote, I had 6 briefings over the rest of the next 2 days, and then recording yesterday. So it kept me pretty busy, I would say, overall. And it's fun. I'm not like saying I wouldn't want it, that I don't like doing it, but it doesn't feel glamorous in the moment. I will say that.
No, it's busy, it's hard work, but it's good hard work.
It's work after all. So
yeah, of course.
We should talk to Sigmund, Jonathan.
Yes,
because Sigmund
definitely.
is he's our tvOS expert, and I know that tvOS was a little disappointing, having hung out with Sigmund quite a bit this week. But there are some good things in there still, and I know we got a nice sizzle reel at the beginning of the keynote with some interesting stuff in it. Sigmund, what have you learned this week?
I feel like what I've learned, my major takeaway from tvOS 18, is that Apple were kind of moving away from the idealistic approach of everything being Apple in a particular setup, even if, their product range doesn't necessarily reflect what every single person would want. And so a lot of the smaller details and features have been kind of hidden from people that aren't that idealistic customer. And being able to bring enhanced audio to everyone, basically TV speakers, Bluetooth speakers, AV receivers, whatever, I think is a big shift, actually, in what Apple TV as a platform is.
Yeah, I really agree with you because, I mean, the reality is that a lot of people listen to television on bad speakers. I mean, if you have really high-end speakers, you probably don't need the enhanced audio. But if you're using your TV speakers, this is going to help it, I assume.
Yeah, yeah. And the boost feature that's been added onto enhanced audio, which basically brings those vocals up even further beyond the other frequencies. I've already been able to test this on the go, and it works great. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's my biggest takeaway. Obviously, it's nice to have all of the niceties like the new screensavers and insights, which I'm excited for it, but it's limited to Apple Originals, at least for now, right? Which is a bit of a bummer considering all of the metadata that's already within the TV app. So hopefully there's something that can be done there. And who knows?
Do you think that's something where they're going to require buy-in from the other TV show, the other content producers?
Absolutely, but I don't know how if they need to offer an API further down the line. The one thing I would say, as someone that, of course, follows tvOS year in, year out, is that this is only the beginning of the yearly cycle. I feel like each year we might get a third of the features announced at WWDC, and then come October we get a nice surprise, and then in January as well. So there's a lot to come. I mean, of course, the keynote was kicked off with the Apple Originals announcements or first looks at second seasons of shows that I cannot wait to watch, namely Silo, Pachinko, and Severance. So that had me very, very excited. Of course, another season of Slow Horses as well. And then a bunch of Apple Original films. So I think from a tvOS perspective, of course, we haven't gone into all the nitty gritty, but I'm really happy. I think there's some fan service there with the projector support for 21:9 native. I'm going to be interested to see if that means that it's going to work with widescreens, and also if that means that there's going to be like an extended layout of tvOS. That's going to be exciting, if so. So yeah, I think it's been good. That's interesting. It's been a good week.
Were there any Apple originals in that trailer segment that were kind of like news, or were those all things that had been previously announced? Because I know at least on those TV series, those weren't really, that wasn't really news, right?
Yeah, everything was previously announced. Normally we get some kind of sizzle around summer, so that's giving us an idea of what's to come in the fall time. But then, there's a lot of theatrical releases happening. Fancy Dances this week. Then we've got Fly Me to the Moon, and a number of others. I mean, The Instigators, we even got a clip of that going through the Boston streets during the enhanced audio demo. So there was lots of kind of first looks. I'm really buoyed that we got a first look at Severance, but we got Pachinko before that. So there's lots to look forward to, and no doubt we're going to hear more at the in the next couple of months, I'd imagine, to give us a better overview of the lineup for the rest of the year.
Sure.
Yeah, there's some other interesting things around. I think audio and like home as well. With I really like the idea of the share play with HomePod, and the fact that other people can use that and share, and change tracks on a HomePod, even if they don't have Apple even if they don't have the Apple Music service, and you can even do that on Bluetooth speakers as well, which I thought was particularly interesting. I think that's a really it seemed kind of light when we watched the presentation, the keynote, but diving into it afterwards, there's some really nice little touches in there, like that share play for HomePod. There's live captions on FaceTime, which seems could be a really good thing, a really good accessibility feature, that, and then things like the subtitles even if you've got something on mute.
Yeah.
which seems interesting, and the Siri, like the shaking the head with the AirPods Pro, which is, I think, a really clever addition. There's lots of little bits in there which maybe not banner features, but I think could really make a difference sort of day to day for people when all these features are released. And the new screensavers as well, I think, is a really good. I love the aerial screensavers. I think they're great, but it is nice that we've now got a bit more choice, and we can really choose exactly what we want to have on a screensaver rather than just be stuck with a photo library or the aerial screensavers. It's so some nice stuff in there. I quite liked after delving into it after the keynote.
One thing that was demoed with tvOS, the captions that automatically happen when you go back 10 seconds. The interesting thing is it's actually on all of Apple's platforms. So it's going to work across iOS, iPadOS, macOS. So I love that feature.
Oh, and I think there's Siri is on device now on Apple TV.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
So,
which, yeah, and that's going to be, I think that'll be really handy for, when you say, oh, what did they say? Or skip back, because sometimes you have to, it's a bit annoying because by the time you said what you're saying, the command, and then it actions the command, you're like 5 or 10 seconds ahead in what you're watching already. So it's hopefully that might speed that up, which I'm looking forward to seeing.
Hopefully that will also improve the integration with Siri and the Apple TV. In time.
Yeah,
I'm hoping it's not another year that we're having to wait to see like some vast improvements in terms of the knowledge base. We got an improvement last year, but really it's not quite there. But now I guess we're going to have to wait for an M-powered Apple TV to get some vast intelligence.
Yeah, I would think so. I think we'll get a new Apple TV maybe in the fall. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's still pretty powerful, but you're right. It's not up at the level where it can handle some of the Apple Intelligence stuff.
Mm-hmm. True.
All right. I think that I would like to move on because we're going to try to get out of this episode before 30 minutes. And I do want to get to picks because this is, after all, Mac Stories Unwind. We have been talking about Apple TV content, which is very apropos of the show. But I want to get some picks from everybody. And because it's WWDC week, I think we can have our picks can be something from WWDC if you want, or it could be something you're going to watch on the way home, or something that just really that's kind of thematically aligned with WWDC. I mean, what do you have for us today, Jonathan?
I have a couple of picks. So one is an album by my favorite band, Eels, which came out at the end of last week. It's called Eels Time! ! And if you've never listened to the Eels, Eels have been around since the 90s. I think I can't remember what number this album this is, but this is, they're in the teens now. And it's incredible how much Mark Everett manages to still churn out great sort of alternative rock music. And this album's, is just the same. There's a lot of, I think, more reflective mood. I think he's a lot older now. He has a child. He recently went through a health scare where he had to have an open heart surgery, which I was shocked to read and then relieved to find out that he was actually okay. So I've been listening to that, and that is a really great album. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't recommend that to anyone because I'm always recommending Eels to everyone, even though they've been around for so long. Because there's always seems to be someone who's never quite heard of them or hasn't listened to them since Beetle Freak back in the 90s. And so, yeah, I'd recommend their new album, Eels Time, which is available now to stream and purchase, of course. So that's a great album. And for something to watch, I'm picking something a bit out of nowhere, sort of. I'm picking a film called Hot Rod, which is a film by The Lonely Island, who were a trio who used to write and perform on Saturday Night Live. Akiva Schaffer, Yomita Cohn, and Andy Samberg. And this was the sort of mid 2000s, I think. And the reason I'm recommending it is because I am currently listening to the podcast, which is also a recommendation, called the Lonely Island and Seth Meyers podcast, where they are going back over the various Lonely Island sketches over the years on Saturday Night Live. So that's all the musical ones that they did, the sort of the ones they did with Justin Timberlake and all those various people. And what they've just done recently is they were going through their movie Hot Rod, which they wrote and directed just after their first season on Saturday Night Live. And it is a supremely silly film, and it's a lovely hour and a half long. It's quite a short film. And if you're just looking for something to just turn your brain off and just laugh at some really silly, quite stupid jokes, this is going to make you laugh. It's not going to challenge you. It's not meant to. It's just meant to be good fun. And I watched this a couple of nights ago after listening to the podcast, and it just brought me a lot of joy. So I think I would like to recommend that for anyone who's just wanting to pick me up at the end of the week. It's been a long week. You want something on Friday night, something that's not too long. Pop on Hot Rod. It's going to give you quite a few laughs, and you'll feel all the better for it. So they're my picks for this week.
Excellent. Yeah, I have not heard of that one, so I'll just definitely check it out. Maybe I'll watch it on the way back to North Carolina. How about you, Sigmund?
So I'm kind of going dub DC related, and I've actually loaded House of the Dragon Season 1 on both my iPad Pro and my Apple Vision Pro, because I've still have yet to see the first season. I don't know why I kept putting it off. It's on Max. And one of the reasons why I was kind of pushed towards it is there is an update on the Max Apple Vision Pro app that's adding some Iron Throne immersive environments, which honestly, on the flight, I think is going to be kind of cool. So I'm looking forward to trying that out. One of the kind of conversations that I've had whilst I was here was with Adam Bader and his team at Max, and what they're looking to do and what they were hoping for from, a tool perspective. And I think despite me, not being happy about Atmos being, limited to the top tier of Max's subscription tiers, I think everything else they're doing quite well with the service, especially when it comes to Apple Vision Pro.
Did they have any comments on that tier restriction with the Atmos when you spoke to them?
I have mentioned it a few times, and I've been told that it's been referred to somewhere in a dark room. So I'm hoping something. I am hoping something changes there, purely because from an artistic point of view, the people that create these shows, like sound, is half the picture. So I'm hoping they'll do something there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of going in between watching on Apple Vision Pro and watching on iPad passively. For some episodes, because once we finish with this recording, I'm downloading iOS 18 as well, so I'll be messing around with that. I never fully unwind, John.
Well, Sigmund, I've got something for you, so hopefully I can unwind you. I'm going to do my best here with my pick, which is the Anne Bernick RG35XXSP.
What name is that? That name was stressful just to hear.
Yeah, Anne Bernick does this with all their devices. And this is a handheld Game Boy Advance SP style retro gaming console. And it's something that we're going to be talking about on NPC next week, the next portable console podcast that I'm doing with Federico and Brendan Bigley, which will be out next Tuesday. But I wanted to give everybody a preview because it's such a great little device. What's nice about Anne Bernick is that their devices tend to be much more affordable than if you're trying to do something like the high-end things that Federico's doing with Windows handheld PCs. Those cost hundreds of dollars. The Anne Bernick devices, because they don't need to have as powerful of processors in them to play things like Game Boy games or SNES or whatever it happens to be on those older games, they tend to be in the range of $50 to $80, and this one's in that kind of $70-$80 range. And it's got a little micro SD card slot. You can load it up with your ROMs, get them wherever you choose to get your ROMs, and play them. And it's a nice. It has a. We talk about this on the show about what to do in terms of the OS. A lot of these devices, you can switch out the OSs, and a lot of the community created OSs are better than the ones that come on the devices. Right now, this device is so new that most everything in terms of alternatives is a little rough right now. But even Anbernic is doing a better job with their OS. I mean, it has features like, you can close it and it will sleep the device, or it will save the state of your game up to the cloud and then turn off the device for you automatically.
That's nice.
All kind of like nice quality of life type things. And it's great for a long trip because it's a clamshell. The buttons and the screen are protected when it's closed. You can fit it in your pocket. It's easy to put in a bag. I brought it with me to WWDC because for those exact reasons. I've got plenty of equipment between my MacBook Pro and a microphone and all that kind of stuff. I didn't need a lot of other stuff, and I don't have a lot of time to play a lot of games anyway. So having something small that I could just kind of pull out and use on the plane or a spare moment here and there has been really, really nice. So if you want to learn more about it, though, definitely listen to NPC next week. I'll put a link in the show notes. And of course, we have yet another podcast in the MacStories family that debuted just recently, which is Comfort Zone. So check that out, because as we record this today and this episode goes out, Comfort Zone has episode 2 out, and you can find out what happened with the very first challenge that they gave each other and a bunch of other stuff. So check that episode out. I actually have not listened to it yet as of recording Unwind, but I'm sure it's really good. And it's on YouTube too. So, we've got like over 500 subscribers to our YouTube channel. So, get in on the ground floor before we hit 1,000.
Yeah. I'm currently looking at the next episode now, sat next in my queue on Castro to listen to. So I'm going to be on that very soon. Yeah.
All right. Very good. Well, I want to thank Jonathan and Sigmund for joining me today, giving Federico a little bit of a rest, a little day off. Safe travels back to the UK, Sigmund.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch very soon, I'm sure. You can find us all over in MacStories.net. We've got a lot of things going on. We've got, you'll find Jonathan there. You'll find Sigmund doing Magic Rays of Light, and writing. He wrote a great overview of tvOS too. And Jonathan wrote a bunch of stories this week too on WWDC. So check out what they've been doing on the site. And you can find me on Mastodon. Just go to johnvoorhees.macstories.net. Jonathan and Sigmund are there too. Just search for them. I don't remember exactly what server everybody's on at this point, but you can find them.
I'm Jonathan Reed at techhub.social, so you'll find me there.
Okay. How about you, Sigmund? What's yours?
Sigmund at mastodon.screentimes.net.
There you go. See, I mean, it's keeping all this in your head is not easy, even if it's your own account.
Yeah.
So there's that. And of course, I'm on Threads and Instagram too, where you can find me as John Voorhees. That's JohnVoorHes. Talk to you later, guys.
See you later.